Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Joy Fay, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you and show you the basis of composition. You know, this is one of the biggest questions that I get asked from students, is how do they compose a painting? So I thought I would give you a short demonstration about how this works and how you can use these principles in your painting. I also, because of this, have done a fact sheet that you can download. It's free. I'll leave the link in the description below, which will give you 10 key points about composition, which will make all the difference in the world to your paintings. Because if you get composition right, you'll get your painting right. If you understand the principles, it will all come together. When I first started painting, once I learned about composition, it really transformed everything that I did, because I learned to look at my paintings differently and with an understanding of how to look at a painting and therefore how to compose it. So if you're just starting out, or even if you've been painting for a while, you'll find this video really helpful, because it will give you a really good, solid understanding of where to start with a painting and how to put the composition together. And I'm going to also use some collage, because it will help you again understand how this works. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the absolute basics, and I've just got my sketchbook here to give you an example. Sometimes, you know, when you're learning this, it's a really good idea to do some sketches first about the design that you want to do. But before you begin, what you need to do is to plan the painting loosely, because obviously if we're working intuitively, it just comes naturally. But if we've got this, what I'm going to show you, as a foundation, then it helps you with your design. So I'm actually going to be working on a square painting today. And so I've drawn a square here. I hope you can see it. I'll go over it with the black pencil. Now, what you need to do to begin with is divide the picture into thirds. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to do a line down here and a line down here, a line across and a line across. Right, so we've got our third. So our focal points could be here, could be here, could be here, or could be here. Okay, so if I start off with that, whatever I might do on top of it, I've got an idea about where my focal points are going to be. So fundamental, as a beginner, or if you're already painting, if you've got this already in mind, it's going to help you with whatever you draw. So I'm just going to do a very simple, easy design, so I can show you very easily how this works. So I'm kind of going to work in squares. Now, we can do all different kinds of shapes. I could do any kind of shape I want, but for this exercise, to give you a real understanding of how to do this yourself, I'm going to make it very simple and just work in a nice, easy design. So let's have a look. I'm going to use this as a focal point. So I might actually just make a box in here. I'll come to the colours a little bit later. I think because I've got these lines, I'm going to, let's have a think. Let's see. I'm going to come across here and I'm going to come down and I'm going to do something here. Right, so I've got a focal point here and a focal point here. So automatically my eye will go to those places, which I'll show you in a minute. And then I'm just going to fill in other parts of the design that I might do. You know, it depends how I go, but just, you know, very roughly. I might have some interest up here. So I might put another box up here. And I might do some interest over here. Maybe a circle, possibly. Maybe some marks. You know, this is just a very nice, easy, simple design to start with. So having got that in mind, I'm now going to come and do something on the paper. So let's just put that to one side for a minute. Now, what I'm using here, because I had some over, is some really nice thick watercolour paper that has been lying around. And I decided I would do something a little bit different and start with a black background. Actually, you know, if you've seen any of my other videos, I do a lot of different backgrounds, and particularly I love orange backgrounds, you know, yellow, bright colours. But I want to kind of give you some other ideas, and starting in black is an interesting way to begin. So I'm going to just get my white pencil, because I'm working on black, and I'm going to just sketch out the design a little. But I've got my thirds here, and I've already put the crosses on them already, so you can see, right? So I've got a plan to begin with. Even if I was just free drawing, which I could easily do, I know where I could put focal points. But the design that I've drawn, I'm just kind of going to have a play with this. I'm going to come down to here, come across. So this is going to be a block. I might have a block in here, a block over here, something going on here because of that focal point. And then I'm going to do something up here with that focal point. So we've got kind of like a beginning. Now, how I'm going to show you how this works is I'm going to use some collage, because before you start actually the painting, if we do the collage around the design, you've got a solid prompt and place to go. Remember, we're learning, this is a process. It's not necessarily going to be a picture on the wall, although you never know, it might be. But it's a process of understanding the process. So that's why I want to go through it stage by stage so you can really understand how this works. So I'm going to begin with some collage. So I've been through my stash of different things, and I've decided on my colour palette, which is going to be mainly blue. I want quite a lot of light in it, so sort of creamy white, blues, greens, and a little bit of orange, which, if you've seen some of my paintings before, those are the colours that I love. Now, what am I using? For the collage, I'm going to use this gel, a gel medium. It's a brilliant one. I like using brilliant gel, and it's by Liquitex. So I'm going to use that to stick down the collage. The first thing I'm going to do, and I've cut some up already just to save a little bit of time, is to add an added texture. So I've got some newspaper, and this area here, which is mainly going to be light, although it's going to be just a space of creamy white, I want it to have some texture and interest. So I'm going to just see if I can place some of the paper, the newspaper, on here, just to see. I mean, I don't mind if it's not all covered, because we're going to paint over it anyway, but we will get, it's going to be something sort of similar to that. Let's move that over. So I'm going to stick this down, and I'm going to have a white space here. So I'm going to put some here. It will just give some added interest and also help me plan the painting. Although I don't want it to be restrictive, I want it to be intuitive, but at the same time with some knowledge of what to do, which is usually the biggest question most people ask me. So I'm just going to stick this down using the gel, and it won't take long to do. And I'll speed this up a little bit so we're not here all day watching me gluing. But basically I'm putting the glue down, putting the paper on top of it and going over the top to smooth it out, get rid of the wrinkles, and there we go. So I'll speed up while I do the rest, and then come back to you in a little while. So I'm using this Liquitex gel, but you can use PVA glue if you haven't got any gel at hand. But it is worth getting some if you're going to do a lot of this, because it's really lovely to work with, and it works so well with the acrylics. And you know, the collage just is, you know, it helps you because you can paint over it, but it's a really good way to get started, and it gets over, you know, the initial fear of starting a painting, no matter what you do. So it's worth having a go with. Okay, so that layer is down. I'm now going to fill in these colours. So as I said, that my palette is going to be blue, green and orange, more or less. And so I've actually gone through my stash of collage paper, and I've found some things here. So I've already prepared for where these are going to go. So when you've done your design, if you've got collage paper, fantastic, or you can make some yourself. As you might see, what I'm going to do here is when I start painting, I'm going to have some tissue paper on the side. So whatever colour I'm using, if I want to change the colour, I'll go on the tissue paper to take the colour off, which then gives me lots of ideas and lots of pieces. These are all tissue paper and things that I've done that you can use for collage, which is great. I've also got my palette here. I've got a wet palette, and I do have a video on how this works. You know, I live in Spain. At the moment it's really, really hot, and the paints dry so quickly. So what I've done with this, I've got a wet cloth underneath. I've got some cooking paper, some wax paper on top, and I put the paint on there as my palette, and then I can cover it over and I can keep the paints dry. You can do this with any kind of thing, with a foil, what do they call it? You know, a thing that you would put in the oven. You can make that and put some cerulean wrap over the top. All different ways of making a palette, but I have this one. So I've got that ready with my colours. And now I'm going to put the collage on to get an idea of how I want this design to be. So I'm going to start with the blue. So I'm going to put this on, and then again, I'll come back to you. One of the great things about you know, learning these principles on composition is that you can go back to older paintings that you've done, and you know, maybe you'd felt there was something missing, or you could do something else, but you weren't sure what. So, you know, with now, you know, understanding the principles of the composition, you might be able to go back into those paintings and adjust them so you get the composition how you want it. And I do that quite a lot, you know. I go back to old paintings, have a look at them, things that I really kind of quite like, but they just weren't as good as I wanted them to be. And then think, aha, you know what? I could just do this with it or that with it, and that would make it all the better. And it's worth experimenting, because they're just sitting around doing nothing anyway. So you might as well use them as your experiments. And you know, bear in mind, this is all experiment. I think if you set out with the idea of doing a masterpiece, You know, it's intimidating before you've even begun. Whereas if you start off with the feeling of you're going to explore the possibilities, experiment, see what happens if, I love that expression, let's see what happens if, then you've got far more chance of enjoying and having fun with your painting in total. And so that's a really good thing to have a think about. Okay, so now I've got the majority of the collage down, and you can see that it's really already looking interesting. I love the colours. It's giving me a clear path forward. So it's a great way to, you know, get over the fear of starting a painting, because you know how to compose it. Even if you're free drawing on it, you still can use those points for reference, however much you know, free drawing it might be, or you're just playing. But if you're conscious of that to begin with, then it helps you not get confused along the way. So you can see here already, and I'm going to paint over a lot of this, but let's then go on to the other point, which is balancing your colours. So, for example, I've got a difference between this green and that green. I've got a difference between this blue and that blue. This one's more intense, this one's lighter. Again, with the orange, this one is lighter, that one is a little bit darker. So already I'm in the flow of getting the colour contrast, the values, and placing them in specific areas. So I've got my point here, I've got a point here, I've got a point here, and I've got a point here. So all of those places is where things are going to meet, and we're going to have some contrast and focal points. So now I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to start painting. So I've had an interesting time. I let this dry, and then I put the camera back on, and for some reason it didn't film. So I've done the first coat. So I just want to explain you the process, because we're going to put a second coat on anyway. I also put this first coat on with a sponge, just literally covering it gently. So I've still got some of the newspaper coming through, but I am going to do another coat. And then I've just painted over those areas that I had the collage on. What I did, and I will show you again, is when I put the paint on, in order to get some extra texture, I'll go over with my tissue paper and bring some of the paint off. And let me just show you this piece, which I've got here. And also then when I've finished using the paint, I'll put it on the tissue paper. So I've got some, as I mentioned before, some nice collage paper. So I'm sorry about that, but you didn't see me do the first coat, but you're now going to see me do the second coat, which is great. What I want to do to begin with, though, however, is I want to outline some of these shapes. So I can do that in different ways. I can do it with a crayon, or I could do it with some charcoal. Here's my crayon, and I'm just lightly going to go over some of the edges with this, and I'll probably increase it with doing a bit of charcoal, but it's kind of quite nice to do it to start with, just to have some extra emphasis. You know, this is going to be a focal point here, and I'm going to do a little bit down here with the crayon, a little bit here. You can see here with the colour that I'm creating some interest here, and there will be some interest here, and then we're going to have some interest here, or focal points as we would call them. Now, how that works is you want some interest areas, so your focal point areas. Then you want some calm areas. So on the fact sheet, I call this the negative space. So your eye has got the chance to have a look at the busy area where everything's going on, calm, back to a busy area, and calm. So you're going around the painting. And as I also mentioned in the fact sheet, you want to have a look at your lines. So that's what I'm going to add as we go. But before I do all of that, I'm going to give this another coat so you can see what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take my sponge again. I'm just going to go in with a little bit of white and go over what I've done. Just gently, I don't want to lose everything that's under here. I just want to give it another light coat and brighten it up a little bit. So technology, hey, God, here's I talking away. The camera wasn't working, so never mind. So I've lightened this up, and you can see how quick it is to do with the sponge. Just kind of like a light. It's not a glaze really, but it's just lightening it up and giving it some more interest. I'm not going to go over totally this area here, but you can see it's already a little bit lighter. I do want it to go lighter eventually, but it's okay for now. And I'm going to do a bit of that down here. So we've got our basis of our composition. So let's go a little bit lighter. This might need a couple of layers, which is absolutely fine. But I've got some nice texture. I've got that print coming through. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it on the camera. And there we go. So now, before I go over a second layer of this, I'm going to do I've got some Payne's grey and a little bit of black. And what I'm going to do here is add a few extra details. I'm going to probably go over it a bit. I don't want it too harsh, but I want it so it kind of defines some of the areas. Now, this bit here is a focal point, so I'm going to make that a little bit sharper. Okay. And coming down here, I'm going to put this in a bit sharper here. So it's kind of keeping us in the painting. I don't want them to sort of be obvious lines, but I want it to have some of that added interest. And, it doesn't have to be perfect. I want it to kind of have a loose feeling about it. Then here, where we've got the focal points, again, this can be quite strong because we want the eye to come to a focal point, and that helps to do that. You can see already, I hope, that your eye is going to those places. Then I'm going to come down here a little to the green, paint over this again, but just to define some lines here. Not, I don't want it like a pen drawing. It's more like, really softly adding it and to add interest. So we've got something happening. Let's put a little bit more here and possibly here. So you can see how that's kind of lifted. Now I'm going to go over again with some of the layers of the colour. I can do that in different ways. I can do it with the brush, which is fine, but maybe what I might use here is I might use a palette knife, and I've got some blue mixed, and I'm going to just add some of this here with a palette knife. You see, when I do that, I'm not going to get it completely covered, which I don't want. I want that kind of feeling of texture. So it's kind of interesting how that will work. And it's picking up some of the colour from underneath, which is really nice. And I will show you what I do with the tissue paper. So with the tissue paper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to layer this on top, and then take it off. So you can see what the nice texture is. I've got a bit of paint on there. Let's take that off there. So it's kind of beginning. I want it to kind of build up those layers, and that's what you should be thinking of, is building the layers to your picture. So I'm going to do a little bit more here with the same blue, but I'm going to make it darker. So I'm adding a little bit of Payne's grey and the blue, and I'm going to put that in here to make it a little bit darker. But then, to give it a little bit of interest, add some of the other blue, so it's sort of blended together. It's not flat. So that's kind of turning out quite nicely. And we could do the same over here. So I've got some interest with the colour. It's not just flat colour. It's got something else happening in it, plus the texture that's underneath. So you can see how that's working. And all these things kind of go to how you put your painting together and how it will all work together. I'm doing this quite quickly because, you know, the purpose of this video is to talk to you about the composition and how you can emphasize those areas of composition. So I've got that kind of coming together quite nicely. Okay, and that blue here. Good. So now let's do a little bit again to here. I'm taking off this paint on the tissue paper, and then I can rinse it off. So we want this come to this colour again. So let's do this with a little bit of orange and a little bit of the ochre. Don't want it totally flat. I want that kind of interest. And then we're going to go up here, we're going to make it a little bit darker. Why do we do that? Because we want to add interest in some different colour values. So put that different colour value in here. And then maybe add a little bit down here. Let's make this even darker here. It's all about doing interesting things, changing the values of the colours, and you know, so it blends together. And we do finishing touches when we finish, so it's beginning to come together. and hopefully you can see that happening. Again, just kind of blending the colour. Mixing it on the paper. So I've speeded it up again a little bit, just because it takes a while, and you know, it's quite a long video already. So I hope that you're enjoying watching the process and seeing how you know, you can put together a lovely painting very simply just by, you know, experimenting and being aware of those points, those focal points in your picture. And it's relative with everything, not just abstract painting, but, you know, classical, realism paintings, landscapes, portraits, whatever. You're always looking for the design and the color values and the composition. So it's important, and, you know, have a look at other paintings and see how, particularly, you know, the masters, and see if you can pick up on how they've done their composition and their color values. It's always fascinating. Now, just while you're watching this, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever thought about having a whole week painting? You know what? I'm doing a retreat in September, and it's a creative painting and wellness retreat. And we're doing 4 hours of painting every day, and then we've got a day that we're going to go to Granada, to the Alhambra Palace, which is fabulous. I have a lovely person coming in to teach Tai Chi and yoga and dance and movement. So it's going to be an amazing week. We did a retreat in May, and if you go and have a look on my website, you'll see the video that I did of all the highlights. It was absolutely fantastic. So if you want any information, if it interests you, if you would like a week of painting with me and with a lovely group, we're only going to have up to 8 people. There's 4 spaces left, so there's a little bit of time if you're interested. To have a fantastic week in Andalusia in Spain, which is near Malaga, if you want to check it out. And I'm excited to be doing that again. But it's so kind of absorbing, because you can really get to learning about painting and meet some interesting people who are doing the same thing as you. So anyway, that's just a thought, maybe something that would be spark your interest. And in between times, if you're on my website going having a look, you can see all the other things that I'm doing with online courses and my membership group, and lots of things about painting, because, you know, that's my passion, to help you really enjoy it, because it's so wonderful, such a wonderful thing to do, and gives us so much pleasure and satisfaction and a purpose. You know, I think that's one of the interesting things about it. So now let's get back to the painting. You can see that it's developing slowly, and how these, you know, interest areas where there's lots going on against the negative space areas where it's peaceful and quiet, how that's slowly coming together. And okay, this is a very simple piece of you know, simple painting, but it still has some interest. It still will be intriguing to have a look at and to, you know, ponder on. And as it's developing, you know, it takes time. You know, it took me a couple of days to do this picture. You know, nobody's in a rush, and I haven't got a, you know, race to the finish, and neither have you. You can just take your time and enjoy the whole process. And if you know, download the fact sheet, you can follow along with the ideas of, you know, the things to look out for when you're doing this, so you don't get confused about it. So I'm adding some more interest here, another little box, but I'm going to change this, not make it the same, so it's different. And again, we're looking for differences, and that's important because you want different size shapes, different things to catch the eye. Okay, so we're going to do some finishing touches. I've got two acrylic black pens, one which is a bit of a thicker nib and one which is a finer one. So I'm going to do some few added extras to, again, add some interest. But it's coming together. It's a nice simple painting, but it's interesting, and it shows you the composition. We've got a focal point here, we've got a focal point here. So now we want something over here. So what I want to do here, and I might just put some little marks in here to, let's start about here, and then see what difference it's going to make to the painting. Let's come over that one a little bit more. Okay, so already I've got some interest. Now let's balance it up over here. So I'm going to do a black here, a black square, a little bit bigger than this one. Let's make it even bigger. We don't want them the same size. And put our marks in here. Okay, it's coming together, isn't it, with a little bit more interest. Let's come down the side here, a little bit more black. Okay, and then we want something up here. So again, I'm going to bring something down here, just for interest, and I'm going to sharpen up some of the areas, not a lot of them. So we've got some sharper lines, and we've got then some softer lines. I want to sharpen this line up here, so I'm going to put this in. Okay, and I think I'm going to do something more down here. And then lastly, something here. So let's do a circle here. You know, the finishing touches can take as long as the whole putting together of the picture. You know, when you get to this certain stage, and then, you know, you're really in the zone, and then, you know, something says, do this and add that, and, you know, perhaps add deeper colour here. And that's what I'm doing here, really. I'm kind of now at a crucial point of the details, and making the painting come alive and interesting. And I think this is another place where a lot of people can tend to get stuck because they say, what do I do next? You know, I step away from it for a while and then, you know, come back, assess, look, see how I feel, see where I'm looking, turn it upside down, you know, just leave it for an hour or so, and come back and then see how you feel. And oftentimes something that you thought was right isn't, and something that you thought wasn't right is. So it's it's good to give yourself a break and to step back from it and have a look. I actually was putting it up on the easel so I could see it, actually looking at it directly rather than looking down, and that does make a difference to the whole painting coming together. What I've done here, I painted that little bit over in white because I felt it was too dark, and I want to put some orange into it. And actually, when you paint it over in white, it's helpful, because then when you come to put the colour on, you know, you've got the pure colour again. So I'm adding a bit of more greens here, a little bit more depth. You know, the green is the nice complementary colour. Not quite to the orange, but you know, the reddy tones, so that again lifts it. So we're looking at complementary colours again, which I also mention on the fact sheet, that, you know, to check your complementary colours and obviously your values. But I do spend, you know, time on assessing, and that's a very important time for the painting. What I have noticed here is that the actual paper, the watercolour paper, it's not really straight. So when I finish this section, I go away and cut it down, and it looks much better. So you can see here I'm going over with a stronger orange, which suddenly gives it a lift, and putting some in that on that edge, on that blue box. Again, because it's the focal point, then you need those little points of interest to keep, you know, the viewer involved in the picture. So just adding these little extra touches can make, you know, all the difference in the world. So having had a break from it, I decided I didn't like the circle or the lines, so I took them out. And you know, it's interesting when you get to a certain stage with the painting, you just think, that's not working for me, it doesn't look right. And it didn't feel as if it was part of the picture, the circle. So I go over it, and you'll see a bit later that I've really blocked it out and changed it, but I'll show you that a little bit later. So, but we're nearly coming to the end. It's nearly there. It's beginning to happen, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm now coming to finishing touches. I've changed it slightly. I decided to get rid of that line there. I've just blended it out, and I put the circle in here, and I didn't like it, so I've taken that out. So you can see you can change as you go. So our focal points are very, you know, they're very obvious, but we're kind of going around the painting. But I want to add some other interest to it. So I've got some Stabilo crayons here in different colours, and I love doing sort of extra things with the crayons. So I'm going to have a little go with that. Now, what's kind of interesting when you use these crayons, because they're you can use them with water, but you can get some really interesting effects. And one of the things that I like to use are baby wipes, because you can smudge the crayons. And you know, these finishing touches, particularly when it comes to composition, can make a huge difference to where your eye is going. So, you know, obviously there's a lot of space here. I've got something up here which is interesting, but I kind of want to do something else to bring it interest, because I've taken that circle out. So I've got a red crayon here, sort of reddy orange. So I'm just kind of going to intimate something. So I've got it there. Now I can go over it with the baby wipe, and I can kind of smudge it in so it looks like part of the painting. It's kind of interesting how that works. If I don't like it, I can just literally take it out. But as soon as I do that, there's some extra interest. It's very subtle. You probably might not even see it on the camera. And now I've got an orange one and I'm going to do something with the orange one too. So again, just kind of coming down to just different areas. Now I took that line out, but I can create some other kind of subtle lines in here. Again, just to bring the eye in. And you kind of notice it and not notice it all at the same time, which I like. Now, because I've got this one coming here, I'm going to bring this one here. So it's coming through and it's the orange against the blue. So that's kind of nice. And you can just see it. And I'm just going to gently go over it with that. And it just blends it in. Something around here, this needs something, so I'm going to just put something in here. I can make it as strong or as light as I like, so I could actually enhance this orange one here. And we've got some nice textures, so that sort of highlights that, bringing it round so our eye is going round. Just doing these little enhancements can really bring the painting more alive and have extra interest. So you might consider doing something like this. Practice a little bit, you know, in your sketchbook with some other paintings that you might have done, and see how you feel. I've also got a white one here, so I'm going to actually do some white drawing. Oh gosh, it's come apart. Let's just sharpen this up. Always the way. Okay, so with the white one, again, I can create some subtle, very subtle patterns with it, which add interest. With the green, I've got a nice green here. I hope this one's okay. I can define a few edges, soften it down again, but it just adds some, oh gosh, I'm not having much luck with this, am I? Let's do this again. So it can add some interest. I'm just going to put a few different little areas with the green down here. So if we have the green against the orange, it's also quite nice. Maybe a little bit up here with the green. And it's again tracks the eye because the colour is there very subtly. Strengthen that up a bit. And maybe put a bit up here. Kind of like that. Possibly a bit darker here. But just tiny little hints that you can embellish the painting with that are very, very subtle, and you'd never know. And suddenly it sort of starts to come together. I'm going to put a bit of this orange down here. Enhance the orange here. Sharpen that up. That's our opposite colour. So I feel as if that's coming together now. Something else in here I think I'm going to do a little bit more of this orange circle in here. and just blend that in. Yeah. Okay, possibly a little bit of the orange subtly into here, just to warm it up a bit. You can just see it a little. You can play around a bit with it with some crayons, or you could use pastels, you could use anything you like really. I'm going to just increase this here. This is the white, you can hardly see it, but it's going to define that a bit more. So I hope you find that helpful and useful with your own paintings, and you can understand this point about the composition. So when I'm looking at this, you know, I've got a busy area here, I've got something really going on. This line now is taking us, we've got something going on here, we've got something going on here, we've got something going on here, and we've got this line that's bringing us round. So we're staying within the picture. And that's what the composition is all about, is that you want to hold the viewer's attention within the picture. So if you had lines that were shooting out, you'd go off, wouldn't you? So you want lines that are bringing you in and keeping the interest of the picture, and you start wondering, you know, what is it? How do I feel about it? What's it giving me? Are they buildings? Is it this? It could be, you know, to everybody it's something different. That doesn't really bother me. I don't pay attention to that. It's how I feel about the painting. And that's my recommendation to you, is to think how you feel about the painting. Now, you know, I've done a whole series of similar pictures to this, similar colours. You can go on my website and have a look if you like. And I like this theme at the moment. It's kind of organising me. You know, it's not a crazy abstract, you know, all in emotions flying abstract. But it is an abstract, and the point with this was to show you how the composition works, how your colours work a little bit, the contrast, the palette. And I hope then that you will, you know, download the fact sheet and go through, because everything that's on there I've gone through today in this video. And if you want to know more about abstract painting, I've got also a free mini course with 4 really good lessons about starting a painting, a bit about your colour, and again a bit about composition. So you can get that too as well, that's free. So I'll put all the links in the description below. And, you know, I think, you know, this will be helpful for you for your picture. So if you've enjoyed it, please give me the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more tutorials to help you with your painting, and press the notification button so you'll know when the next one's coming out. So thanks again for watching, and have fun painting. Bye for now.